The unexpected hero. In the bustling spaceport of New Terra Colony, Commander Sarah Chen stood at attention, her dark eyes scanning the crowd of diverse alien species moving through the terminal. After 15 years in the Terran Defense Force, she thought she'd seen it all. But something about today felt different. The mission briefing had been unusually vague. Investigate suspicious activity at Outpost Zeta 9, a remote trading station on the edge of regulated space. Intelligence suggested illegal weapons trafficking, but Sarah's instincts told her there was more to it. Her small team consisted of just 3 others: technical specialist Raj Patel, whose fingers could hack any system in known space; combat medic Maria Torres, whose steady hands had saved countless lives; and the newest addition, security officer James Harper, fresh from the academy but with promising potential. "Commander," Rage's voice crackled through her earpiece. "You need to see this." Sarah made her way to their designated meeting point, a quiet corner of the spaceport's maintenance level. Rage had his portable terminal open, holographic data streams floating in the air. "I intercepted some encrypted communications from Zeta 9, he explained, fingers dancing through the projections. "They're using old Kraxan military frequencies. Very sophisticated stuff." The Kraxan. Maria's face darkened. "I thought they were wiped out in the Nexus War." "Apparently not all of them," Sarah mused. The Kraxan were notorious for their cruelty, especially their practice of enslaving other species. If they were involved, this mission had just become far more complicated. The team boarded their unmarked scout ship, the Shadowhawk, designed for covert operations. As they broke atmosphere, Sarah briefed them on the new intelligence. "Listen up," she began, pulling up a holographic map of Zeta 9. "If the Kraxan are involved, we're dealing with more than weapons. They're known for trafficking in sentient beings. Our priority is to gather evidence and, if possible, free any captives we find." "With all due respect, Commander," Harper spoke up, "we're not equipped for a rescue operation. Standard protocol says we should call for backup." Sarah fixed him with a steady gaze. By the time backup arrives, those people could be gone forever. Sometimes protocol has to take a backseat to doing what's right. The journey to Zeta 9 took 3 days through hyperspace. Sarah spent the time studying everything they knew about Kraxan tactics and technology. The more she learned, the more concerned she became. As they approached the outpost, the Shadowhawk's sensors detected unusual energy signatures. Rage's analysis confirmed their worst fears: sophisticated containment fields, the kind used to hold prisoners. "I'm picking up life signs," Maria reported, her medical scanner humming. "Multiple species, clustered in the lower levels. Their biosignatures are erratic, suggesting stress or trauma." Sarah made her decision. "We go in quiet. Raj, I need those security systems blind. Maria, prep medical supplies for potential casualties. Harper, you're with me on point." They docked under the guise of routine maintenance, their forged credentials holding up under scrutiny. The outpost corridors were dimly lit, the air heavy with the smell of recycled atmosphere and something else: fear. Using Rage's hacked security feeds, they made their way down to the detention level. What they found they would haunt Sarah for years to come. Dozens of beings from various species were held in energy cells, many showing signs of abuse and neglect. But it was the occupants of the highest security cell that caught Sarah's attention. 3 luminescent beings with ethereal features, members of the legendary Luminar species, thought to be extinct for centuries. Their natural bioluminescence was dulled by pain and captivity, but their eyes held an intelligence that spoke of ancient wisdom. "Commander," Harper whispered urgently, "we've got company. Multiple hostiles approaching from both directions." Sarah's mind raced through their options. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and deep in enemy territory. But looking at those imprisoned faces, she knew retreat wasn't an option. "Raj, can you override the cell controls?" "Yes, that'll trigger every alarm in the facility." Sarah smiled grimly, checking her weapon. "Good. It's time humanity reminded the galaxy why you don't mess with Earth's children. Let's show these Kraxan bastards what happens when they mistake human compassion for weakness. As Rage's fingers flew over his terminal, Sarah prepared herself for the fight of her life. This wasn't just about completing a mission anymore. It was about standing up for what humanity believed in: freedom, justice, and the fundamental right of all beings to live without chains. The cell doors began to open, and chaos erupted in the detention block. Sarah Chen, a daughter of Earth, was about to become either a hero or a cautionary tale. But either way, she would show the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or technology, but in its unwavering determination to fight for what was right. The real battle was about to begin. Breaking chains. Alarms blared throughout Outpost Zeta 9 as chaos erupted in the detention block. Sarah Chen's decision to free the prisoners had triggered exactly the pandemonium she'd hoped for, but now came the hard part: getting everyone out alive. Raj, seal the upper-level doors. Maria, start evacuating the prisoners toward the emergency docks. Harper, you're with me on crowd control. Sarah's commands cut through the cacophony of sirens and confused shouts from the newly freed captives. The three Luminar beings emerged from their cell with unexpected grace despite their weakened condition. The tallest one, her skin pulsing with gentle blue light, approached Sarah. "I am Nova," she spoke, her voice carrying an otherworldly melody. "My sisters are Aurora and Stella. We thank you, warrior of Earth." A burst of plasma fire interrupted their introduction. Kraxan guards, their scaled armor gleaming under the emergency lights, were pouring in from the secondary corridors. "Thank me later," Sarah replied, pushing Nova behind cover. "Can you help us control this situation?" Nova's eyes glowed with an inner fire. "We are not helpless, Commander Chen. Our powers were suppressed, but now—" She raised her hands, and suddenly the air shimmered with intense light. The advancing Kraxan guards stumbled, temporarily blinded. "Harper, now," Sarah commanded. The young officer didn't hesitate, his precise shots dropping 3 guards before they could recover. Sarah had to admit, the kid was proving his worth under pressure. "Commander," Rage's voice crackled through her earpiece. "We've got a bigger problem. I'm detecting a Kraxan warship dropping out of hyperspace. ETA 10 minutes. Sarah cursed under her breath. They'd expected reinforcements, but not this quickly. "Maria, status on the evacuation." "Moving as fast as we can," the medic responded. "But some of these prisoners can barely walk. We need more time." Time was the one thing they didn't have. Sarah's mind raced through their options, each seeming worse than the last. Then she noticed Aurora, the second Luminar, studying the facility's structural diagrams on a nearby terminal. "Your ship," Aurora said suddenly, her voice like wind through crystal. "How many can it hold?" "The Shadowhawk. Maybe 30 in an emergency," but Sarah started. "There are nearly 50 prisoners," Stella, the third sister, finished. "We have another solution. The Kraxan are not the only ones with ships in this facility." Understanding dawned on Sarah's face. The impound bay. They must keep the vessels they steal from their victims. Nova nodded. "We can sense our own ship there. Its quantum drive remains intact." More weapons fire peppered their position. Harper returned fire while Sarah considered their options. Splitting up was risky, but it might be their only chance. "All right, new plan," Sarah shouted over the firefight. "Raj, get to the Shadowhawk and prep for emergency launch. Maria, continue evacuation procedures, half to our ship, half to the impound bay. Harper, you'll escort the first group. I'll take the Luminars and the rest to recover their vessel." The next few minutes were a blow of coordinated chaos. Maria's medical training proved invaluable as she quickly sorted the prisoners based on their condition and mobility. Harper led the more injured ones toward the Shadowhawk, while Sarah and the Luminar sisters guided the others through maintenance tunnels toward the impound bay. 3 levels down, Nova directed, her bioluminescence providing much-needed light in the dark passages. Our ship calls to us. They emerged into a vast chamber, filled with confiscated vessels of various sizes and designs. In the center, a sleek craft unlike anything Sarai had ever seen seemed to pulse with its own inner light, the Luminar ship. Commander. Stella's warning came just as the first wave of Kraxan elite guards burst into the bay. These weren't ordinary security forces. Their enhanced armor and heavy weapons marked them as professional killers. Sarah took cover behind a cargo container, returning fire. "Get to your ship. Power it up." The sisters hesitated. "We won't leave you," Aurora insisted. "That's an order." Sarah snapped, dropping another guard with a well-placed shot. "I'll hold them off." As the Luminars rushed toward their vessel with the remaining prisoners, Sarah engaged in the firefight of her life. Her military training took over, every shot precise, every movement calculated, but the Kraxan kept coming. A blast caught her in the shoulder, spinning her around. Pain exploded through her arm, but Sarah forced it down. She'd survived worse. Then something extraordinary happened. As the Luminar ship hummed to life, waves of pure energy began pulsing through the bay. The Kraxan weapons flickered and died, their advanced technology overwhelmed by the ancient power of the Luminar craft. "Commander Chen." Nova's voice echoed in Sarah's mind. "The way is clear. Come." Sarah sprinted for the ship, diving through its ethereal entrance just as more Kraxan forces arrived. The interior was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Organic technology merged with crystalline structures that seemed to sing with power. "Raj," she called through her comm, clutching her injured shoulder. "Status." "Shadowhawk loaded and ready for launch, Commander. Harper got everyone aboard." "Execute emergency launch protocol. We'll follow in this vessel." Sarah watched in amazement as the Luminar sisters merged with their ship's control system, their bioluminescence connecting with the craft's neural network. "The Kraxan warship has arrived," Stella announced, her voice resonating through the ship itself. "They are powering weapons." Sarah smiled grimly. "Then let's show them why picking a fight with humanity and its allies is always a bad idea. Take us out, full power." The Luminar ship rose gracefully, its advanced technology making even the most sophisticated Kraxan systems look primitive by comparison. As they burst from the outpost's docking bay into open space, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. They had freed the prisoners, but exposed a massive criminal operation in the process. The Kraxan wouldn't take this lying down, and Sarah had just made herself and her team their primary targets. Looking at the determined faces around her, human and alien alike, she knew she wouldn't have it any other way. Because when humanity decided to stand up for what was right, the entire galaxy would learn to take notice. The real war was just beginning. Alliance of Light. The vast expanse of space erupted into chaos as both the Shadowhawk and the Luminar vessel burst from Outpost Zeta 9's docking bays. The massive Kraxan warship loomed ahead, its weapon systems charging with ominous intent. "Nova," Sarah called out, studying the tactical display that seemed to float in the air around them. "What can this ship do?" The Luminar's skin pulsed with increasing brightness as she merged deeper with her vessel's systems. "Our technology was ancient when your species first looked to the stars, Commander. Allow us to demonstrate." The ship's crystalline structure hummed with energy, and suddenly they were enveloped in a field of pure light. The Kraxan's first barrage of plasma torpedoes passed harmlessly through them, as if they were no more substantial than starlight itself. "Raj," Sarah commanded through the comm, "get the Shadowhawk and the refugees to the rendezvous point. We'll handle the pursuit." "Commander," Harper's voice crackled with concern, "you can't take on a warship alone." Sarah watched as Aurora and Stella worked in perfect synchronization with their ship's systems, their combined bioluminescence creating patterns of light that seemed to bend reality itself. "Trust me, Harper. We're far from alone." She turned to Nova. "Time to show the Kraxan why they should have left the Luminar in history books." What followed was unlike any space battle Sarah had ever witnessed or trained for. The Luminar ship moved with impossible grace, not so much flying as dancing between the stars. Each attack from the Kraxan warship was met with a display of technology so advanced it bordered on magical. Aurora's voice resonated through the ship. "They are attempting to lock on with their tractor beams." "Let them," Stella replied with unexpected ferocity. "It will be their undoing." Sarah watched in amazement as the Luminar sisters channeled their energy into the ship's systems. The moment the Kraxan's tractor beam made contact, a surge of pure light traveled back along its path. The massive warship's shields flickered and failed, overloaded by power they couldn't comprehend. "Their weapons have disabled," Nova announced, "but they've launched fighter squadrons." A swarm of Kraxan attack craft poured from the warship's launch bays, their sharp, predatory designs reflecting their pilots' aggressive nature. Sarah's tactical training kicked in as she analyzed their formation. "They're trying to box us in," she observed, "force us toward their capital ship's secondary weapons." "Then let us rewrite their strategy," Nova replied, a hint of what might have been amusement in her melodic voice. "Commander, you understand warfare. Guide our dance." Sarah felt a strange connection form as Nova linked her consciousness to the ship's tactical systems. Suddenly she could see the battle from all angles, could feel the ebb and flow of space itself. It was overwhelming, yet somehow natural. "Pattern Delta," she commanded, drawing from years of combat experience. "Spiral through their formation, then execute a quantum fold directly through their center mass." The Luminar sisters moved as one, their ship performing maneuvers that should have been impossible. They spun through the fighter screen, leaving confusion and chaos in their wake. Each Kraxan attempt to target them resulted in their shots passing through harmless afterimages of light. "Quantum fold initiated," Stella announced. "Commander, you may wish to brace yourself. This sensation can be unsettling for non-Luminars." Reality seemed to bend around them as the ship phased between dimensions. Sarah's stomach lurched as they passed literally through the Kraxan warship, their quantum state allowing them to exist briefly in the same space as the larger vessel's hull. They emerged on the other side just as secondary explosions began rippling through the warship. Their passage had disrupted its quantum containment fields, leaving its power systems in chaos. "The warship is crippled," Aurora reported with satisfaction. "Their fighters are retreating to assist with emergency procedures." Sarah allowed herself a moment of pride before focusing on their next challenge. "They'll have sent messages to their command. We need to disappear before reinforcements arrive." "Already done," Nova assured her. "We've masked our quantum signature. As far as their sensors are concerned, we ceased to exist the moment we completed our fold." For the first time since the mission began, Sarah felt herself truly relaxing. She watched as the sisters disengaged from their ship's control systems, their bioluminescence dimming to a gentle glow. "That was impressive," she admitted. "I've never seen technology like this." "Few have," Stella replied softly. "Our people chose isolation long ago, watching from the shadows as younger races grew among the stars. Perhaps that was a mistake." "The galaxy is changing," Aurora added. "The Kraxan's cruel ambitions prove that the time for watching has passed." Nova approached Sarah, her silver eyes seeming to peer into the commander's very soul. "You and your team risked everything to free us, asking nothing in return. This is why we believe humanity might be the ally we have waited for." "What exactly are you proposing?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew where this was heading. "An alliance," Nova confirmed. "Your courage and tactical wisdom combined with our technology and ancient knowledge. Together, we could end the Kraxan's slave trade and bring justice to this sector of space." Sarah thought about her team, about the risks they'd already taken. She thought about the faces of the prisoners they'd freed, and how many others must still be out there suffering. The decision was easy. "I'll need to contact Earth Command," she said. "This goes way above my pay grade. But personally, I'm in." The Luminar sisters' bioluminescence brightened with joy, filling the ship's chamber with patterns of light that seemed to dance with possibility. "Then let us set course for your rendezvous point," Nova declared. "There is much to discuss, and even more to plan." As they entered hyperspace, Sarah Chen realized she was now part of something far bigger than a simple rescue mission. Humanity had just gained powerful allies, and the galaxy would never be quite the same. The real question was, were the Kraxen and their allies ready for what was coming? A new chapter in galactic history was about to unfold. Seeds of Revolution. The secret rebel base on Nexus Prime hummed with activity as Sarah Chen sat in the cramped command center, facing a holographic projection of Earth Command's Leadership Council. After 3 days of intense debriefing, even she had to admit their story sounded almost unbelievable. "Let me get this straight, Commander," Admiral Zhang said, his weathered face creased with concern. "Not only did you discover surviving members of the legendary lunar species, but you're proposing a joint operation to dismantle the entire Kraxen slave trade." "That's correct, sir." Sarah stood firm, her injured shoulder still healing. "The Luminar's technological capabilities, combined with our military expertise, could change the balance of power in this sector." "And these Luminar sisters," another council member interjected, "they're willing to share their technology." Nova stepped forward, her gentle luminescence casting dancing shadows on the command center's walls. "We offer a partnership, not submission. Our people have watched humanity's progress with great interest. You possess something rare among spacefaring races, a balance of strength and compassion." The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Admiral Zhang spoke again. "We'll need time to discuss this. In the meantime..." A warning klaxon cut through the air. Rage burst into the command center, his dark eyes wide with urgency. "Commander, multiple quantum signatures detected. The Kraxen found us." Sarah's tactical mind snapped into action. "How many ships?" 3 warships, similar class to the one we encountered, plus support vessels. "They're launching dropships, ground invasion force. They're not just coming to recapture us," Aurora observed, her silver eyes narrowing. "They mean to destroy this entire base and everyone in it." Sarah turned back to the holographic council. "Sir, we need immediate reinforcements." Admiral Zhang's expression was grim. "Nearest battle group is 6 hours out. You'll have to hold until then." "We'll make it count," Sarah promised as the transmission ended. She turned to her team and their new allies. "Raj, get our defense systems online. Maria, begin evacuating non-combat personnel to the emergency bunkers. Harper, coordinate with base security. I want overlapping fields of fire on all approach vectors." Nova and her sisters shared a knowing look. "We can enhance your defensive capabilities," Stella offered. "Our ship's quantum core can be modified to create a shield matrix around the base." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "But we'll need more than defense to survive this." She pulled up a tactical display of the surrounding terrain. "The Kraxen are predictable. They'll hit us with everything they have, trying to overwhelm us with superior numbers." "Then let us use that against them," Nova suggested, her bioluminescence pulsing with tactical calculations. "Commander, what do you know of quantum entanglement?" For the next 15 minutes, Sarah and the Luminars devised a plan that would have made her tactical instructors either proud or horrified. As the first Kraxen dropships entered the atmosphere, their strategy was ready. "All units, this is Commander Chen," Sarah broadcast across the base's command network. "We've got incoming hostiles, but we also have a few surprises for them. Remember your training, watch your sectors, and most importantly, show these slavers what happens when they push humanity too far." The first wave of Kraxen troops hit the outer perimeter exactly where Sarah predicted. Their scaled armor gleaming in Nexus Prime's twin suns, they advanced with typical arrogance, only to find themselves caught in a trap. Nova, Aurora, and Stella had modified their ship's quantum field to create pockets of altered spacetime throughout the battlefield. As the Kraxan forces charged forward, entire squadrons found themselves moving in slow motion or accelerated time, their carefully coordinated attack falling into chaos. Harper hit the right flank. Sarah commanded from her position in the defense tower. They're bunching up near the quantum anomaly. The young officer proved his worth once again, leading a counter-attack that caught the disoriented Kraxan troops completely off guard. Maria's medical teams were ready with portable force fields, protecting the wounded, while Rag's cyber warfare suite played havoc with enemy communications. But the Kraxan hadn't become the galaxy's most feared slavers by giving up easily. Their second wave deployed heavy assault platforms, massive walking tanks that shrugged off conventional weapons. Nova, Sarah called out as one of the walkers targeted their position. We need something bigger. The Luminar sisters joined hands, their combined bioluminescence reaching blinding levels. The quantum anomalies around the battlefield began to pulse and shift, creating corridors of warped spacetime that literally pulled the assault platforms apart at the atomic level. By the stars, Harper breathed, watching a walker dissolve into its component particles. That's impossible. Sarah finished with a grim smile. Welcome to the new normal, kid. The battle raged for hours, with the defenders using every advantage their unique alliance provided. The Kraxan forces found themselves facing an enemy that could literally bend reality against them, supported by human military precision and determination. But even with the Luminar's incredible powers, they were still outnumbered. As the third wave of dropships descended, Sarah knew they needed something dramatic to turn the tide. Nova, she called out during a brief lull in the fighting. Your quantum manipulations, can they affect ships in orbit? The Luminar's eyes widened as she grasped Sarah's intention. Yes, but we would need to channel power from our ship's core directly through your base's transmission array. The feedback could destroy both. But it would work. Nova nodded slowly. If we succeed, we could create a quantum cascade through their fleet. But Commander, attempting this would mean sacrificing our best means of defense and your most powerful weapon, Sarah finished. Sometimes victory requires sacrifice. The question is, do you trust me? The three sisters exchanged glances, having one of their silent communications. Finally, Nova turned back to Sarah. We trusted you to free us from bondage. We trust you now to help us free others. What must we do? As Sarah outlined her desperate plan, she felt a fierce pride in how far they'd come. Humans and Luminars, working together to fight something bigger than themselves. This wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about showing the galaxy that change was possible. The real question was, would their gamble pay off, or had she just signed all their death warrants? With the Kraxan fleet moving into position above, they were about to find out. The quantum gambit. The atmosphere in the base's central control tower crackled with tension as Sarah Chen and her unlikely allies prepared to execute their desperate plan. Above them, the Kraxan fleet hung in low orbit like predatory birds circling their prey. Power conversion at 80%, Raj reported, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. But Commander, the transmission array was never designed to handle this kind of energy. Sarah watched as Nova and her sisters interfaced with both their ship's quantum core and the base's systems. Their bioluminescence had taken on a deep, pulsing purple hue that filled the chamber with otherworldly light. The array doesn't need to handle it for long, Sarah replied. Just long enough to create the cascade effect. She activated her comm link. Harper, status on evacuation. Last civilians are in the deep bunkers, her young officer reported. Maria's got medical teams standing by, but Commander, are we sure about this? Sarah glanced at Nova, seeing her own determination reflected in the Luminar's silver eyes. No, we're not sure, but sometimes the best plans are the crazy ones. Quantum core synchronization complete, Aurora announced, her voice carrying harmonic overtones that made the air itself vibrate. But sister, the power requirements, it will burn out our ship's systems. A worthy sacrifice, Stella replied firmly. Our vessel can be rebuilt. Freedom cannot. Warning klaxons blared as the Kraxan fleet began their final approach. Their initial bombardment had been stopped by the quantum shields, but those same shields were about to be sacrificed for Sarah's gambit. Multiple capital ships moving into optimal firing position, Raj warned. They're preparing for a concentrated strike. Sarah took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Now or never, people. Nova, begin the sequence. The Luminar sisters joined hands, forming a triangle around the central control hub. Their combined bioluminescence reached blinding levels as they channeled power from their ship's quantum core through their own bodies and into the base's systems. Power at critical levels, Raj shouted over the growing whine of overloading systems. Transmission array reaching maximum capacity. Hold steady, Sarah commanded, even as warning lights flashed across every console. Wait for them to commit to their attack run. The Kraxan fleet moved into perfect formation, their weapons charging for what they surely thought would be a killing blow. They had no idea they were flying into a trap. Now, Sarah ordered. Nova and her sisters released their gathered power in a single synchronized burst. The base's transmission array blazed with energy as it projected a quantum field unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to hiccup. The quantum cascade started small, just a ripple in space-time that expanded outward from the base. When it reached the first Kraxan ship, the effects were spectacular. The vessel's own quantum fields, which powered everything from their engines to their weapons, began to resonate with the cascade. It's working, Raj exclaimed. Their quantum containment fields are collapsing. Sarah watched in amazement as the cascade spread from ship to ship. The Kraxan fleet's carefully maintained formation dissolved into chaos as their vessels began experiencing localized time dilation effects. Some sections of their ships aged centuries in seconds, while others reversed temporal direction entirely. By all the stars, Harper breathed, watching through the command center's viewport. They're coming apart. He wasn't wrong. The quantum cascade had created a feedback loop in the Kraxan ship's power systems. Unable to maintain quantum coherence, their advanced technology began to fail catastrophically. Weapons systems fired randomly, engines pulsed erratically, and hull plating aged decades in eye blinks. But the victory came at a cost. The base's transmission array exploded in a shower of sparks and molten metal. The Luminar sisters collapsed, their bioluminescence dimming to barely visible levels. Medical team to the command center, Sarah called out, rushing to Nova's side. Are you all right? The Luminar's silver eyes flickered open, a weak smile crossing her features. We survive, Commander. Though I fear our ship's quantum core is beyond salvation. Better the ship than your lives, Sarah replied firmly. Reg, status report. Her technical officer was already analyzing the aftermath. Kraxan fleet is in full retreat. Those ships that can still maneuver are jumping to hyperspace. The others, he shook his head in wonder. Some of those vessels aged thousands of years in minutes. They're little more than ancient debris now. And our base. Defensive systems are fried, and we won't be projecting any quantum fields again soon, but structural integrity is holding. We're alive. Sarah helped Nova to her feet as Maria's medical team arrived to check on the sisters. More than alive, she corrected. We just proved that the Kraxan aren't invincible, that their technology can be turned against them. They will return, Stella warned, leaning on Aurora for support. With more ships, new tactics. This was only one fleet. Let them come, Sarah replied with fierce determination, because now we know we can hurt them, and more importantly, the rest of the galaxy knows too. She moved to the command center's main viewport, watching the last Kraxan ships flee into hyperspace. News of this battle will spread. Other worlds, other species they've terrorized. They'll learn that resistance is possible. That humanity and the Luminars working together created a weapon that could challenge Kraxan dominance. You believe this will inspire others to fight back? Aurora asked. Sarah nodded. I believe we just lit a spark, and if we fan those flames properly. She turned to face her unlikely family of humans and luminars, a fierce grin crossing her features. We can start a fire that will burn the Craxon's whole empire down. Nova's bioluminescence brightened slightly as she grasped Sarah's meaning. Not just a military victory, then. No, Sarah agreed. This was just the beginning. The real revolution starts now. As if to emphasize her words, a transmission cut through their communications channels, the first of many Earth Defense Force vessels arriving in response to their distress call. The cavalry had finally arrived, but Sarah Chen and her team had already proven something far more important. They had proven that change was possible, that different species could work together, that the galaxy's greatest powers could be challenged. Now they just had to survive long enough to finish what they'd started. Rising tide. 3 weeks after their historic victory at Nexus Prime, Sarah Chen stood before the combined Earth Defense Council and representatives from a dozen alien species. The massive conference chamber on Europa Station buzzed with excited whispers as delegates discussed the footage of the quantum cascade attack that had just been shown. As you can see, Sarah concluded, her formal uniform feeling stiff after weeks in combat gear, the Craxon are not invincible. Their greatest strength, their advanced quantum technology, can become their greatest weakness. Nova stepped forward, her gentle luminescence drawing all eyes. The Luminar had recovered her strength, though her sisters were still healing aboard the station's medical bay. We offer not just weapons or technology, Nova addressed the gathering, but hope. For too long, the Craxon have built their empire on the suffering of others. That ends now. Admiral Zhang rose from his seat at the council table. The tactical advantages are clear, but what you're proposing goes far beyond military action. You're talking about galactic revolution. Exactly, Sarah confirmed, bringing up a holographic map of known space. Red dots indicated confirmed Craxon slave operations. There were hundreds. We've already received messages from resistance groups on 20 different worlds. Our victory showed them what's possible. A tall insectoid being clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. The hive worlds remember when the Craxon came. They took thousands of our young. If what you say is true. It is. Rage interrupted, stepping forward with his datapad. And with your help, we can do more than just destroy ships. We can build a network. Share information, coordinate strikes, establish safe havens for freed slaves. The chamber erupted in overlapping conversations as species that had long suffered under Craxon oppression began to see real hope for the first time. Sarah watched with satisfaction, but Nova sensed her underlying concern. You're worried, the Luminar observed quietly. The Craxon won't take this lying down, Sarah replied. They'll adapt, develop countermeasures. And not everyone here has pure motives. Some see this as an opportunity to grab power for themselves. Then we must be faster, smarter, and more united than they expect, Harper said, joining them. The young officer had grown more confident since their first battle. The quantum cascade was just the beginning. We've got more surprises planned. He wasn't wrong. Even as they spoke, Maria was working with Luminar healers to develop ways to treat the physical and psychological trauma of freed slaves. Rage had created an encrypted communication network that spanned thousands of light years, connecting resistance cells that had never known of each other's existence. A commotion at the chamber's entrance drew their attention. Aurora and Stella had arrived, still showing signs of weakness but standing proud. With them came representatives from 3 more species, each bearing signs of recent liberation from Craxon control. The Craxon's greatest weapon was fear, Aurora announced to the gathered delegates. Fear kept their slaves compliant, their enemies divided, and neutral worlds looking the other way. But fear cannot stand against unity. Sarah stepped forward again, her voice carrying conviction earned in battle. We're not just fighting against something, we're fighting for something. A galaxy where no species lives in chains. where technology serves freedom rather than oppression, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. Then, one by one, delegates began to stand. The insectoid representative clicked a formal salute, a gaseous being pulsed colors of agreement. The Earth Defense Council members exchanged glances before Admiral Zhang nodded solemnly. "We'll need a command structure," the Admiral said. "Coordination between military forces, humanitarian aid, intelligence operations." "Already in progress," Sarah replied with a slight smile. She nodded to Reg, who projected a new hologram, a detailed organizational chart showing how different species and resistance groups could work together effectively. "The Luminar will provide technical guidance," Nova added, "teaching others to detect and counter Kraxan quantum technology. But we must move quickly. Already that Empire strikes back at worlds they suspect of harboring resistance." "Let them," Harper said fiercely. "Every act of cruelty just brings more allies to our cause. The revolution grows stronger every day." As if to prove his point, new reports began flooding in through Rage's network. A Kraxan slave transport had been captured in the Carina sector. A processing facility on Gemini Prime had been liberated by its own captives. 3 neutral worlds had formally declared support for the resistance. "It's happening faster than we predicted," Stella observed, her bioluminescence pulsing with excitement. "That's what they don't understand about revolution," Sarah replied, watching the delegates break into working groups, ancient enemies finding common cause against a greater evil. "It's not just about weapons or tactics, it's about ideas. And once an idea takes hold, it becomes more powerful than any quantum cascade," Nova finished. Sarah looked at her unlikely family, her human team members, and the Luminar sisters who had become so much more than allies. They had started something unprecedented in galactic history, a unified resistance movement that crossed species barriers and spatial boundaries. But even as hope filled the chamber, Sarah's tactical mind was already planning next steps. The Kraxan would respond with everything they had. The real challenge wasn't starting a revolution, it was winning it. "We'll need to strike their core worlds soon," she said quietly to Nova, "before they can reorganize." The Luminar nodded. "We'll be ready, and we won't be alone." Looking around the chamber at the gathering alliance, Sarah allowed herself to feel real optimism. They had lit the spark. Now it was time to fan the flames until the entire Kraxan Empire burned. The galaxy was changing, freedom was rising, and Sarah Chen, along with her extraordinary team, would make sure there was no turning back. The final battle was approaching. The only question was, would they be ready when it came?